You know, most people I talk to about retirement, folks, they aren't confused. They're just overwhelmed. They're just overwhelmed by just the sheer numbers that have to be considered. And you know, here's what's interesting. You can ask 10 people how much money you need for retirement, and you're going to get 10 completely different answers. You really will. You know, I need $1 million. Well, I need two. Well, I'll feel comfortable with 3 million. I just need whatever it takes. And somewhere along the way, we started believing there's actually a magic number out there. And if you hit that number, everything feels calm. But if you miss it, man, you're doomed. But here's what I've noticed. The people who feel comfortable in retirement, they're not always the ones with the biggest number. And the ones who feel anxious, sometimes they have more than enough. So today, I want to slow this down. There's no hype, no scary statistics, no unrealistic promises. Just an honest look at what you actually need. And why it might be less about the number and more about the lifestyle behind it. Before we go on though, folks, if you're wanting retirement to feel calm and under control, just a little more peaceful maybe, I believe you're in the right place. Subscribe if that sounds valuable, because that's exactly what we focus on here. Simple, practical ways to make retirement more meaningful. All right, now let's get back at it. The $1 million myth. You know, for years we've heard it. $1 million, it became the retirement badge of honor. You hit 7 figures and you're supposed to just exhale and relax. But let's walk through that calmly first. You know, if you had $1 million invested and you followed the traditional 4% rule, that gives you about $40,000 a year. That's roughly $3,300 per month before taxes. Now, pause there for just a second. Is that comfortable? You know, for some households, absolutely. For others, man, it's not even close. See how quickly that million loses its drama once you turn it into a monthly number? Because, folks, retirement's not lived in lump sums. It's lived in your monthly bills. You need to stop asking, how much do I need? And start asking, how much does my life cost? That's the real question. Let's say your monthly expenses look like this. $1,200 for property taxes and insurance, $800 for groceries, $400 for utilities, $500 for Medicare and supplement, $600 car expenses and gas, $500 miscellaneous, $500 fun and travel. That's about $4,500 a month. It's not extravagant. It's not bare bones. It's just real life, folks. That's $54,000 a year. Now, we're having a real conversation, because if you need $54,000 a year and Social Security, say, covers $30,000 of it, you only need $24,000 a year from savings. Now, the number doesn't look as scary. That's about $600,000 invested at 4%. See how different that feels? That's the difference between headlines and real life. The house changes everything. Here's something no one ever says clearly enough. A paid off house can cut your retirement number dramatically. If your mortgage is gone, your required income drops fast. But if you're carrying a $1,500 to $2,000 a month house payment, that changes the math overnight. Housing is the biggest lever in retirement comfort. It's not stocks, it's not crypto, it's not timing the market. Housing and lifestyle, that's it. Healthcare, the wild card. Now, here's the piece people underestimate. Healthcare, Medicare, Part B premiums, supplemental coverage, prescription plans, unexpected procedures. Doesn't have to bankrupt you, but it does require a margin. This is why I don't love the bare minimum retirement mindset. You don't just want enough to survive, folks. You want enough so a surprise doesn't shake you to death. Peace requires cushion. Remember that. Why some feel rich at $800K and others feel stressed at $2 million? This is where it gets interesting. You know, I've seen retirees with modest savings who feel completely at ease, and others with large portfolios who check their accounts every day. So what's the difference? Expectations, spending habits, debt, and mindset. If you're used to living on $4,000 a month, and that's what you're comfortable with, your retirement number will reflect that. But if your lifestyle costs, say, $9,000 a month, you'll chase bigger numbers forever. You know, comfort is relative to your burn rate, really. The danger of the magic number. You know, the danger of chasing a magic number is that it's constantly moving. You know, you hit 1 million and suddenly you think, maybe I need 1.5 million. Well, then maybe I need 2, then more. Who knows? And you know what happens? Retirement keeps getting postponed. Sometimes not because you need more, because you're afraid. And fear doesn't have a finish line. So what do you actually need? You need enough to cover your monthly life expenses. You need a cushion for health care and surprises. You need a lifestyle you can maintain without the stress. And you need a number you can understand, not one you heard on TV. You know, for many households in moderate cost areas, that number is somewhere between 600,000 and 1.2 million. I think that's kind of a high number for a lot of people, but that's what the experts say. I don't know. I don't know if that's the right answer or not. I don't think you need 1 million, that's for sure. But somewhere in that realistic band, depending on debt and lifestyle, and yes, some people make it work with less, especially with Social Security, low housing costs, and modest spending. Here's the real truth. The goal isn't to impress anyone with your retirement account. The goal is to wake up calm, to know your bills are covered, to not check the market every stinking morning, to not feel bad 1 year is going to ruin everything. You know, retirement comfort isn't about hitting a flashy number, folks. It's about understanding your number. And once you understand it, the anxiety drops. So, how much do you really need to retire in comfort? Enough to fund your life, plus margin, plus a little peace. And that number might be smaller and more achievable than you really think. But it starts with clarity, really, not fear. And that's the difference. Folks, if this helped you think more clearly about your number, consider subscribing. Because that's what we do here. We replace fear with clarity. I want to thank you all for spending some time with me here today. And I'll see you in the next video.